Okay, first and foremost, what's your opinion on how the Brexit process is currently unravelling?
I think it's very interesting in that this has been like a 2-year process. The campaign for it's been over the past 4 or 5 years since the politicians started to get it in their head that they were going to do it, and they've done it so cleverly in that they've managed to get people so passionate, yes or no, about it without actually giving anyone any information whatsoever. And there's got to be a bigger plan out there than what they've given people, right? I mean, they've managed to somehow turn it into like a race war essentially, which is obviously not the goal of it. The goal of it has to be financial. So it seems to be that they're wanting to do it so they can get into some sort of trade agreement with the US, which they must think that's more beneficial than having it with the EU. And the way they've done that is to manifest like racial hatred between basically migrants coming into Spain and then coming right through Europe and the UK. So I think it's quite interesting that they've managed to make that the focal point of Brexit. It's about immigration, but they've not actually talked about any real immigration, right? They've not talked about actual people coming into Europe, and the only thing that they have brought in is the fact of people who are already in Europe. Will they be able to stay, or will they have to move home, or will they be able to work? But that wasn't the immigration that they were talking about in the start of it. It was basically like fear-mongering. So I think it's very interesting how they've given pretty much no information about what they were actually basing their campaign on. There is certainly not in the mainstream public domain. Yeah, I'd say that pretty much sums up. I think it's been a bit of a shambles.
So in light of what you've just been saying, it's come to light this week that there might be a backdoor to get into Britain through Ireland, and also today it's been announced that migrants and EU individuals will be able to travel to the UK visa-free. Does this compromise the fact that you were talking about a race war, like in the points that you made from that? Because it seems like the status quo is going to remain.
Well, the interesting part of that is that the start of it was, from what I took of it, was all based on migrants coming from Syria, etc., right? So they basically want to clamp down on this racial tension there. So what their solution to do is they're now talking about building a border between Northern and Southern Ireland, which, if you look through the history of the Northern and Southern Ireland divide, it's taken so long to actually bring any sort of ceasefire there, and it took years and years to progress that, and now they're potentially putting that in jeopardy. So it seems really ironic that they'd feel like racial tension as a main motivator for Brexit, but then they're potentially going to throw this massive spanner in the works by compromising what's been a really lengthy process in Ireland. I think it's all just a massive contradiction in itself.
Typical Brexit.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the Tories have directed the Brexit process in terms of remaining a part of the single market? Because it seems that there's a lot of confusion, and now that they're coming out with this option of a softer Brexit because of the free trade movement, the free movement of individuals, do you think that they've dealt with it well? Do you think that they're trying to gear towards a soft Brexit? Do you think
I think what happened was that Scotland got the independence referendum. Everyone in England started using that as a political leverage, and being essentially the SNP are giving the people in Scotland more than what we're getting here because they're getting these referendums. So the Conservatives then were like, okay, we'll give you a referendum, and given that the leader of the party ended up resigning because he didn't get his outcome, tells you that the whole party didn't actually want Brexit in the first place. It was a PR stunt to try and get them political favour for the upcoming election. So that happened, it failed. The whole Conservative Party, if they were following their leader, would have wanted to stay within the single market in the first place. So then the Brexit thing happens, we come out of the single market. Well, you'd think we should come out of the single market, it's what the vote was for. You'd assume that Brexit means
Brexit.
Stop Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're exiting the benefits of being in the European Union, and it opens your door to other benefits. So I think they wouldn't have expected it to happen. It did happen, and now they've not got a clue what to do, because it seems like the very logical thing to do is to stay in the single market, obviously, because it's a massive market that's right next to the UK. Mm-hmm. So obviously it's caused a massive divide, because why would they want to leave that? I don't know. They say that it would mean that you could open up other trade agreements elsewhere, which fair enough you could. But I think it's very ironic that they talk about staying in the single market and then open up trade agreements with Asia, US, whatever else they're talking about in Australia, and still think that they can have like a tariff-free, like single market access. I think it's quite. I don't see how they can possibly think that everything's going to be in the favour of the UK. At least that's what they're spinning to the public. But I think what will come out of Brussels is very, very different, because they'll be spinning to their people that we're going to get a really hard time to discourage people in Europe doing the same thing. So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Vince Cable, came out earlier this afternoon and said that he believes that Brexit might not happen, in that we could have a revote, or the way that the negotiations will go on will just sort of fade into normality and things really won't change. What's your opinion on a statement such as that things might not change very much, and furthermore that we might renege on the Brexit vote entirely?
So first of all, I'd say Vince Cable is probably one of the most experienced politicians in the whole Parliament. So if he's coming out and saying it publicly, unless he's at it, which he may well be, you'd think there'd be some logic behind it, right? In the comfort of their own home, I'd say pretty much the vast majority of politicians would want that to happen. I think a lot of people in the UK would like some sort of, at least, input as to how it's all going to go about. I guess the problem that it raises for me is that you're still doing it through like a paper-based system of voting, so it's really hard to do. It's really hard to actually get people's input. But it wouldn't surprise me if the election happened and then the decision that was made in the election didn't go ahead, because stuff like that happens, I'd imagine, all the time.
As a young person, if you had zero ties here, like you're free to move about, would you stay in the UK as it is right now? Because there seems to be a lot of turmoil coming out of Westminster and out the other devolved parliaments at the moment. What do you think the general feeling is amongst young people? Would you rather stay? Would you rather go? Where do you see your future going?
It depends, because we live in Edinburgh and that's a very, very nice place, so I'd probably want to stay here because it's so multicultural anyway. But if you're living in Middle England, say, I think it's probably a very different story, because if you go from there to a lot of places around Europe, it'd probably be quite a culture shock to meet, or a positive culture shock, I'd say, to meet possibly more liberal thinking people. So I think we're fortunate living in Edinburgh because it's one of the nicest cities in the world, but I'd reckon for a lot of people, places in England, you'd want to get out there.
Finally, where do you see the future going for Britain as it stands? Do you believe that Brexit will, or how negatively Brexit will impact the UK, or will it positively impact? What will the formation of the UK be? Like, how do you see the future of Britain as we are currently going?
So at the end of the day, for me, the UK's a 60 million people big market. So whether we're in Brexit, out of Brexit, there's always going to be countries wanting to do trade, because it's a massive market, so you'd expect it's got to happen. No one's going to leave that market untapped. I think the really interesting question is that we've already voted on this, but people still don't know the answer, so we're asking what's going to happen. We should have known this before we voted. It's just a ridiculous question in itself. I don't know. I guess it surprised me if Britain, being one of the top 8 or 10 richest countries in the world, would then collapse on itself now. I guess the real question would be what would happen in the next 20 years. Will it have any sort of knock-on effect? But over the next 5-10 years, I can't see there being too big a difference.
So does that mean would you be in favour of a revote, or would you just let democracy play out as it has been?
Well, I don't know if democracy necessarily did play out, because not everybody voted. I think if you wanted democracy to really play out, you'd try and give everyone all the information, honest information, not the sort of rubbish that Nigel Farage was spewing, and then everyone would vote and you'd get a clear depiction of what everyone wants, because people voted on something and they didn't know what they were voting for.
Done.